Hello, my sober lovelies. Before we dive in, I'm really excited to announce my group coaching program for women is live, and you can join now. So excited for this because let's be real here. Quitting drinking isn't just about saying no to the glass of wine or booze. It's about what comes after. All the fear, the boredom, the late night anxiety, and the stories you've been telling yourself for years. And that's where my Rewired Sober group coaching program for women comes in. It's only $247. I'm being totally transparent on the price. It's for 3 months, and you'll learn how to shift your mindset, build habits that actually stick, and question the core beliefs that have been keeping you stuck, and find healthier ways to deal with that loneliness and that now what feeling. The best part is you don't have to do it alone. We'll have live group coaching sessions weekly, and there'll be a bunch of women walking through it with you. It's not another cookie cutter sobriety program for mommy vloggers. It's neuroscience meets real life, and it's designed for women to help you not just stay sober, but actually feel good living sober. You can join anytime, and I'd love to see you on the inside. So start today, get instant access. The link's in the show notes. Welcome to Rewired Sober, the podcast where we unpack what it really takes to rewire your brain after alcohol. Hi, I'm your host, Kate Vitella, a registered nurse, board certified in mental health and addiction, sober since 2018, and a coach who blends neuroscience, lived experience, and real talk to help women break the shame spiral and rebuild their thinking with tools like journaling, humor, and honest conversation. This isn't surface level sobriety. This is where the healing gets deep, grounded, and unapologetically honest. So let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of Rewired Sober. Today's guest is Jessica Guerrieri. I am so excited to have her on here. The author of Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, a book that everyone is talking about. In my women's sobriety group, they started raving about this book, and they said it's fiction, but it felt like someone was sort of living inside their head. And so I had to figure out who wrote this book, what it was about, where it came from. And Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea is sort of a punch you in the gut story about motherhood and alcohol and grief, identity loss, all the things, the version of you that you sort of bury just to keep your family machine running. I mean, there's so many things we can unpack on this book. So I'm going to welcome to the show Jessica Guerrieri. She is from the Bay Area, currently living in Davis, California, with her husband and 3 children. She has a background in special education, but left the field to pursue her passion for writing and raise her girls. Jessica is a vocal advocate for recovery with over 12 years of sobriety. Her debut literary book club fiction novel, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, won the Maurice Prize for Fiction from her alma mater, UC Davis. So welcome, Jessica. I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, and like I had said, I'm in this mom sobriety group, and actually one of the clients that I was working with said, I'm listening to this on audiobook, and I never want to listen to another audiobook again because I want this book to stay in my memory. Like, I want it to live rent-free in my head forever. And, I'm 7.5 years sober, so I don't read Quit Lit as much as I used to, and it's really not
Same.
on my radar.
Same.
But the way that the women around me were like sort of emoting about this and the ways that it resonated, I was like, I need to figure out where this book is, how to get my hands on it. and then how can I bring you onto the show? So I'm so glad you're here. Like, this is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. I love what you said about, like, getting into Quit Lit, and then the thing about my book that we were pushing for with my publisher is there isn't really something where it's not a memoir, and yet it's based on my lived experience, but it's book club fiction where oftentimes in book club fiction, women sit around drinking wine and don't even open the book because they're too busy drinking. So we kind of thought, like, wouldn't it be kind of sneaky if we pitch it as book club fiction in hopes that it reaches those women that are secretly struggling, and then they can hear their sort of narrative in the conversations that are happening with Leah, the main character. And so, it was a little like bait and switch that we did, and it's actually working really well because a lot of people are coming forward and saying, I didn't actually realize that I was drinking a bottle of wine a night and that wasn't normal, or like that wasn't good. And I was doing similar things to Leah, and it kind of feels safer to explore it in fiction than it would in, say, a Quit Lit memoir self help. So yeah, so that's kind of why we chose that genre.
That's fascinating. I've heard the reviews of this book, they've called it, book club gold,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
I can just imagine, like, women sitting around in a book club, like you said, it's wine club,
Right.
and, and then in the quiet, times in the evening when they actually open the book and read it, it so resonates with any and all women. I mean, I'm a stepmom. I don't have children of my own, but I'm part of a family unit. And the very first line of the book, there's a phantom life that runs parallel to the one I am living, stopped me cold in my tracks
Mhm.
because there's the kids and the husband and the dog and the house. And, I can't get in my car without someone saying, please get toilet paper or can you get
Right.
some milk? Right. Like
Right.
I'm in it. And yet, I think every woman can resonate with this phantom life that runs parallel, like the things that we would do if we could chase our wildest dreams. And it just so much of that resonated. So I'm gonna really try not hard not to go all over the place here because I have so many questions for you. But I want to go back to what you said about it being fiction. Now there are very few fiction books out there that touch on addiction like this does.
Yeah.
And so you had said, it was a little bit of a bait and switch, but was it harder to write this narrative in a fictional sense? Or in a sense, was it easier, like you could get away with more?
Yeah. Actually, um, so my editor and my, agent, they told me about it's sort of like auto fiction is kind of what the biz term is for it, because it's like you pick and choose what is like the autobiographical parts, and then you get to sort of finesse the other parts. So I do get to protect the pieces that are fiction, that aren't true. Like my husband's, grandma, who's just about to turn 90 tomorrow, she, like, came up to me at, like, our one of our family things, and she's like, "Who's Miles?" Like,
No.
and, like, there's, like, a little secret, like, love thing on the side, that happens in the book, and I just started laughing because I didn't have an affair, there is no Miles, there is no that. But, it's like because some of it is so real and they know that I have an experience history with substance abuse, it's like, yeah, what parts are true and what parts are not? And so in a lot of ways, I felt safer to do it in fiction because it isn't all true. And like I can protect the pieces that I need to protect. But in so many ways, there are so many pieces that are real, and that, there's verbatim conversations with arguments that my husband and I have had when I've been drinking, word for word. There's a line where he'll say, like, "If you go downstairs and get more wine, you'll disappear and you'll become a ghost in this house." He actually said that, and that sort of was one of those, like, light bulb moments in before I found sobriety, where I was like, "Huh," like, he's saying, like, I'm not myself, and, like, I had to look at that. So yeah, so in a lot of ways, writing it as fiction felt safer for me, and gave more opportunity to explore, um, and protect the pieces that, I wanted to protect.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, and, the irony here is that you get to kind of tell all and also protect,
Yeah,
your family, because isn't that what our job is so much of the time as a woman, like, to keep the machine running?
right.
Um, so good, it's so good, and so I'm glad you pointed out that one line that actually was something that was said to you because the cadence of that, like, "You will disappear." I've heard I've heard so many women say something to that,
Yeah,
um, example, like, their husband will mention that they have to repeat conversations or that they're no longer relevant in the family, they're no longer helpful. Again, like, they will disappear, and so
yeah,
I can see so many women just, identifying that, but and maybe they want to disappear. I mean, did
sure.
you ever wanna just disappear into the woodwork?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, because what are we really hiding from, right? Like, so as a woman that struggles with substance abuse, it's like, I want to hide from the hard. I want to hide from the pain. I want to hide from the things that are overwhelming. Like, my personality is such that when I feel overwhelmed, I just shut down and I just want to I want to crawl into a hole. And so you can imagine I have 3 daughters under the age of 11, and it's like there's never a time where I'm not needed. And so I have a rule in my house where, like, if one of them is asking me something, another one needs to wait their turn, because during the pandemic what happened was everybody is demanding something of me just on top of each other all the time, and I just felt like I was literally, like, caving in on myself. And so that is a scary feeling, and especially for somebody who has substance abuse, because I wanted to escape. And so actually what I ended up doing was I had about 6 years of sobriety at that point, and I knew I couldn't drink alcohol, but I ended up exploring, THC and, prescription pills, because I thought, "Well, here's my get out of jail free, because 'cause we're in the pandemic, the world is ending, I might as well, like, try something else that's, like, safer or natural or whatever excuse you wanna use." And the same thing happened with my addiction with, drugs as it did with alcohol, is that I became, it got me. It got me again, and I became consumed by it. I was no longer able to function as a mother. I would just check out and not be a part of the family, as you said. I became a ghost in my house again, and actually, that's when I wrote this book. And so a lot of the active addiction scenes where she's just really suffering and struggling was when I was in active addiction, suffering and struggling. That's why it's written so viscerally. Um, because I was back in it.
Yes.
I didn't know it, until I overdosed and learned the hard way that I was a I was also an addict, so I identify as both.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that part.
Yeah,
Would you give the listeners like a Cliff Notes version of your recovery story up until the pandemic?
sure. Yeah, so, I was a special education teacher. I had my dream job. I had just married my husband. We had dated for about 4 years through college. I went to grad school, got my teaching credentials. We got married. We had just gotten a house, married into this, like, big, beautiful, supportive family. So sort of similar to the O'Connors in my book. There are parallels between them, but I didn't feel a part of, because I wasn't sure of my place, inside this family, and so I found drinking as a way to, like, make my own place and sort of hide and not really show them who I really was, because I didn't really know who I was, and I was just profoundly unhappy, not for any reasons, like, just like with Leah, where it's like, "It doesn't make any sense. Why are you so unhappy? What are you unhappy about? You have children, you have, healthy children, you have a beautiful house, you have all the money in the world, you live on the beach, like, what are you really complaining about?" So that was my existence, was I had the dream job, I had the dream house, I had the dream husband, I had everything, and yet addiction was still getting me, and I just didn't understand why. I would, wake up after drinking a bottle or 2 of wine, and I would just be sobbing uncontrollably, and then I would be sick, And then I would drink more in the middle of the night. I used to love when I woke up, like, passed out, and I woke up because then I it was like a do-over and I got to keep doing it, which sounds so insane, but that's what I would do. It got to a point where I was having consequences with my job, and, they ended up, firing me, and they didn't really give me any feedback as to why. It was very, like, hush hush. Um, and since I'm part of the teachers union, the teachers union got involved, and it was very, political in the sense of, like, I felt like I was so wronged, and, like, there was so much injustice, and I had all the parents backing me and saying, like, "She's such a wonderful teacher," and blah, blah, blah. When all the while I was teaching their kids hungover, I wasn't performing the best that I possibly could because I was really sick. And so I felt so vindicated in my, like, anger and, like, pointing the finger at, like, this person wronged me and this person wronged me. And again, just like Leah does with her mother-in-law in the book. When in actuality, it was me. Like, I was the problem. And so I was able to get my job back. I met with the superintendent. I remember, like, sitting down, professional, like, if I wanted to pull it together, I could. So I did. And I, had all these parents that wrote me these glowing recommendations because when I'm good, right? When I can fake it, I'm good. And I just remember walking out of the meeting, calling my family and being like, "Ha, like, I got my job back. I'm tenured now. And, like, they can't ever fire me again. Like, they're so wrong." And my family just being like, "Well, Jess, like, what's the part that you're not saying? Like, what is the part that you're hiding from us?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Nothing, nothing. Like, no, they're wrong. They're wrong." And this was after I think my either first or second intervention that they had done with me and that I didn't know was an intervention. And after every single thing that happened, I just would think to my head, like, "Oh my God, I'm going to go to the store and go celebrate. I'm going to go get as many bottles of wine as I possibly can. I have so much to celebrate. Look what I did. I fooled you all. I tricked you." And I thought that I was so clever. In reality, I was fooling myself and I was taking away all of my happiness, and the disease of alcoholism was taking away all of my happiness. And so it wasn't until my husband and I decided to start having children or try to have children that I realized, oh my God, I can't stop drinking. And this is really scary because I wanted to drink more than I wanted to become a mom. And just that thought in my head said, there's something wrong. Like, there is something wrong. And so I had sort of like an out of body experience where I was making myself throw up as I did every morning before school. I would go into the guest room so my husband wouldn't hear me throwing up, even though, he knew I had drank too much the night before, of course. And I was haggard and I was bloated and I just looked like a shell of myself. And I was sticking my fingers down my throat to vomit out the bile and the wine. And I just looked at my own eyes in the mirror and I heard a voice that said, "Haven't you had enough yet?" And it's also a line that's carried in my book because it's meaningful to me. And I believe it was a power greater than me that was, like, telling me it's time to be done or you're going to die. I was mixing sleeping pills with alcohol and forgetting that I was taking them. And so I would come to and then remember, like, waking up and my heart was beating so fast and then it was beating so slow because of the sleeping pills. So I was well on my way to killing myself accidentally because I didn't want to die. And at that time, I went in. I told my husband. I said, "I think I have a problem with alcohol." And he said, "Oh, thank God." And he took me to the doctor. We got my liver enzymes checked, and they were elevated off the charts for someone who was 29. And that night, I went to my first recovery meeting, and I've been a part of the recovery community now for 12 years. I've had a sponsor. I've sponsored women. I've been a part of sober mom groups. And I basically find myself in the middle of the pack as often as I can be to be of service with other women, to be vocal about my recovery, because that didn't exist for me when I was getting sober at 29. All of the women that I knew were in their 60s and 70s. And I was like, the youngest by a mile. And I thought, like, well, should I just, like, come back in my 60s or 70s? Like, Am I, like, missing the golden drinking time, which is, again, the, like, crazy thoughts that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And all of them would tell me, like, "You're so lucky you got sober so young. You're so, so, so lucky." And my daughters have never known me to drink. They've known me to do drugs, but they've only known me as a sober mom, and for that, I'm just eternally grateful.
That's incredible. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
It just goes to show there's so much that goes on behind closed doors in people's lives that we have no idea about. Like, if I'm in your community and you are a teacher and, you're involved in all the school district stuff, like as a mom or a person on the sidelines, I would never know. You
Yeah.
know, you don't ever know the hell that someone else is going through.
Absolutely not, and you look like you have it together, right? Like,
Yes.
I didn't necessarily look like this, like, we definitely there are signs that people see, and I look
Oh,
back at
yeah.
pictures and you're just like, "Oh my god." But it's I was still young, and so I could bounce back in that way, but at the same time, it was like, yeah, nobody had any idea, and that was actually one of the hard things too. I'm sure you talk with a lot of women where people will try and convince you that you didn't have a problem. And it's like, well, first of all, that's saying a lot about you, like their issue potentially or their nervousness about their drinking. But I'd have to kind of like, no, actually, like it was really bad and I was hiding it and there's a lot of secrecy. Um, but like that's the thing is only you know when you're done, right? And like have other people in your ear telling you, oh, I noticed, or the opposite, which is, or I did notice, and like the shame of that, right? Like I've had family
Mhm.
members be like, yeah, I was really worried about you. And I was like, darn it, like I didn't hide it good enough. Like, oh, that's so humiliating. When in reality it's just the shame, right? And it doesn't mean anything. Like it's not it's them showing care for you, really, is what it is. And if you accept it as that, you can just start to shed that and let it go because it's like, okay, yep, I wasn't the best version of myself, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I had a really low bottom, like DUI, go to the psych ward, massive family intervention,
Yep.
almost lose my entire career. I mean, not only did I get fired, but I got reported to the State Board of the Nursing Commission and almost lost my license as an RN.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I first started coaching, I I had this bias that if you had this really hard, rough and tumble rock bottom like I did, and you were, you know, you went to the psych ward, and if you were,
Yeah.
that that somehow made it harder for you to recover, and like I was this version of a recovery until I started working with woman after woman after woman who nobody really suspected. And
Yeah.
so therefore, when they went to get sober, nobody was all that supportive,
Right?
and they encouraged them to start drinking again
You
or like, belittled the process and it
totally.
really was an eye opener for me, like, wow, that would be incredibly challenging. When I got sober, people were clapping for me
Yes,
because
they're like, "Oh, thank God, because you were
thank
gonna
God.
die." And
Yeah.
it was obvious, like, you were gonna die and it was obvious. You're so right, and that's actually with my book, the story that I wanted to tell where it was like, well, Leah on the outside is beautiful and looks like she has it all together, and to anybody else except for the people that are in her inner circle, they would have no idea. And even her own husband doesn't really understand it. And that I'm sure you've come across that in your experience with other women, like, where the husband is like, "Well, I like to drink, like, so I'm not gonna give up drinking, like, we're not gonna not go to concerts, and, like, we're not gonna not do this just because you can't handle it," you know? And it's like, well, it's a partnership, like, it's sickness and in health, guys, sorry, like, that's how this works. And you can absolutely be married to someone who doesn't have a problem with alcohol. My husband is not sober. He doesn't have an issue with alcohol. We have alcohol in our home and it's not an issue for me anymore. But he also doesn't go out and drink, the way that I was drinking. But it's one of those you need to surround yourself with people that are being supportive of your recovery because it's hard enough as it is. Like it's so hard
Yes.
as it is. And just recognize too that the people that aren't being supportive are the ones that likely have something they have to deal with on their own. And that has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. And what it also did for me when I started coaching was it made me reflect that there was a time when I was high functioning. You know,
So
the
much.
28-year-old version of me was the one that was keeping it together. Had I gotten sober around that time at
Yep,
28 versus 38,
yep,
10 years later when basically let it get so bad, but at 28 years old, if I would have said, I'm going to get sober, my partner then and my friends then would have been like, "What? No.
right,
Yeah, you black out and you do some stupid things, but we all
right.
do, and don't be a Debbie Downer," and
Right.
yeah.
Stop making so dramatic and also, like, yeah, you're not any different than we are because
Yes.
remember, we spend time with the people that make us feel normal, right? Like, so a lot of my friends in my lowest part, we're wonderful friends and great people, but, like, their relationship with alcohol, I wouldn't necessarily say was the healthiest, and I think they would even come back and say that now. Have they turned into alcoholics? I don't know, and also probably, some of them maybe not because they just kinda got off the ride and were able to get off the ride and be parents and just be like, "Oh, not for me." But yeah, we surround ourselves with people that just normalize the behavior of binge drinking, and we're just like, "Oh, well, this is what everyone's doing," and also, like, I always had to be around the person that was gonna one up me with, like, humiliation and just be like, "Well, I'm not that person, so it's fine. As long as I'm not that person, it's fine." And it's not. It's not fine.
Absolutely. When I think of book club/wine club, I think of this white collar community I lived in Oregon, um, and it was, higher socioeconomic status, and it was the most drinking I'd ever seen
Oh, so much.
among the moms there. I mean, love those ladies, but man, that's where I really learned to turn it on was
Well, look at every single Netflix, Hulu show that's on air right now. Like, I don't know if you watch Hunting Wives or White Lotus or literally just any show. And all it's showing is that all anybody does is get together and drink. That's it.
mhm.
And not only that, but if they have a problem, any kind of problem, they're pouring a drink. It's just the automatic go-to thing. And I'm not saying that in a critical way. I'm just saying that in a way that's like, well, this is what's being shown. And this is also the reality, especially in situations or with higher economic status where they can't afford to like, oh, bring us the champagne, bring us the what. And it's just like drinks are not an issue. You can always, college, I had to, go out to a bar. I was a broke college kid but I was a girl. So I'd be like, oh, buy me a drink. Okay, bye. And then, you know what I mean? It's just like find a way to get it. Um, and yeah, if you're normalizing it with those groups of people, it's confusing. It's already confusing enough, and it makes it even more confusing that that's like this is just what people do.
Yeah, so true. I wanna circle the conversation back to the book. I'm just so fascinated. I came across this blog site, Eat, Live, Travel. It's like culinary stuff, and the author, her name's Marty Michaels. I think I'm saying that right. Mitchells, I'm not sure. This is what got me. She writes, "At the start of the story, it feels like it's gonna be another book about how challenging motherhood can be, especially with an unexpected third baby, and how being a mother shapes a life that one didn't even envision for oneself, maybe with a few funny stories along the way." I mean, this is like every book we've ever read, right? Maybe with the
Absolutely.
strain on the parents' marriage added in. And she writes, "It is, in fact, all that and more as we watch Leah descend into the abyss of alcoholism. It's very uncomfortable read in parts." She's like, this was uncomfortable to read." And she put in quotations, again, a choice by the author. "But the discomfort really puts us in Leah's shoes. Did I like Leah? Not so much. Could I empathize with her? Yes, because of the powerful writing." And when I read that, I thought, obviously, the writer is in recovery. But that's exactly what I thought, a summer read, another mom book.
Beach read, right? It's a beach
Yes.
it's a light beach read because it's, there's a picture of a woman on the beach in the front, she's drowning, but there's you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
is she drowning? And that's the question. But I love that, I've read that one too, and to me, I'm like, I love when people get that. the opposite is people who don't have experience in addiction. They see Leah as this entitled, bratty woman who is just so unappreciative of her life. And what they don't see is that that isn't who she is. She's just deep in suffering. She's deep in the disease of alcoholism. And so also, she's an unreliable narrator because everything that she's telling us is from her first person perspective. And yet, her best friend and her sister in law, Amy, who, arguably is the most lovable character and redeeming and all of the great things, that is her closest friend and person who loves her the most and wants to support her. And so, if Amy can see that in her, we know that something isn't adding up. We know that something isn't right. Also, the mother in law character that Leah is coming for the entire novel, if Amy loves the mother-in-law, like, what is the version of the mother-in-law that's true? And so it makes you think critically and say, like, well, what is really happening? And that's the bafflement of addiction, right? Like, what is true and what is not true?
Yeah. And this novel is not so much just about Leah, but it's about that entire O'Connell family web, right?
Yeah.
Like, why are so many women getting lost in this family system? And it sounds like you wrote that because of your personal experience, like you said, getting married into a family where you said you didn't really fit, or um and you began to drink. I mean, I was hoping you would elaborate on that, like the falling into the family system piece.
Yeah. Yeah. So many women, whether or not you struggle with substance abuse, everyone can relate to like feeling like an outsider marrying in or like trying to find your footing among an established family, right? That's the thing that I was drawn to my husband's family was they're so close. He's, the oldest of four. Um, his mom had five kids under the age of four and just like stair step kids. But she was the one that like was the PTO president. She could, d do it all, keep it all together, make it seem so effortless. She built the dynamic where all of her children decided to live in the same town they grew up in to raise their families. So we have 13 grandchildren under the age of 11. We all live within 5 minutes of each other, and all the cousins play together all the time, and it's like the dream because that's what her and my husband's dad built.
Mm.
Um, Except to me, it was so threatening because I was so jealous of her ability to be able to do that. Because in my version, I was gonna be the, like, drunk version of that, where it was like you're in front of your white picket fence and the kids are just kind of, like, playing in the grass, and I'm sipping my wine, and I'm just, like, parenting from a distance because I just, I need to be numbing and blurring out how hard it actually is. And I just didn't understand, like, how come she got that version and I got this resentful, I didn't know if I had made the right decision becoming a mom. It wasn't all the things that I thought it was supposed to be. And that was because I was in new recovery and I had two brand new babies essentially and brand new recovery. Um, and so I learned how to drink in the sense of their family, like a lot of families normalized drinking during social events. And other people would drink a lot. And I was like, oh, wonderful. Like, I'll drink a lot and that'll be great. And that became sort of the pattern. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll be the one that like drinks with everybody. And then other people could sort of handle it differently than I could, and that's where I started to spiral. And so in a lot of ways, I resented them because I was like, "Oh, you guys introduced me to this." Like, my mother-in-law introduced me to, like, white wine. I had
Yeah.
never really drank white wine before, and I was like, "It's her fault. It's all her fault." And in reality, it wasn't her fault. Um, and what ended up happening was, tragically, when I got sober, uh, our relationship sort of ebbed and flowed, and I had to sort of redefine what my version of motherhood looked like and stop comparing it to other people's version of motherhood. including hers, and just accept that, this is my version, this is someone else's. We love our children. That's not a question. Um, and so we reached this really beautiful place where we both sort of accepted each other where we were. And unfortunately, she had complications with COVID and she passed away unexpectedly in the pandemic. And so she was the matriarch of the family. She was Christine, in the beautiful sense of Christine. And so when she passed, like, the family became lost because she was literally like our North Star. And so I sort of had to come in and, reestablish my role in the family of, like, well, I'm the oldest of the sister-in-laws. What part can I play in terms of, being there for my sister-in-laws who lost their mother? And so we sort of just bonded together in a really profoundly moving way, to honor her and, like, the legacy that she left behind. And so my love letter to her was actually the relationship between Amy and Christine, and that conversation that they have in the end, and sort of recognizing and accepting each other's versions and finding common ground. And so that was my gift, was that I got to have that with her before she passed away. But unfortunately, she's no longer with us.
Wow, that's wild. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
hear about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know so many people lost so many people from COVID, and you're in the healthcare field. So, appreciate everything that you did during that time. But it's one of those, you just never know how it's going to go. And then the, the great thing was that I maintained my recovery. It was part of my slippery slope in addiction, was her actually dying in that process. But then to find my way back and be like, well, I want to live life in recovery now. I want to show what's possible. I want to show it to my daughters. I want to do it in her honor, and that's what I've been doing ever since. So
Yeah, and you had mentioned that in the pandemic that you started kind of experimenting with, substances,
yeah,
pills,
yep,
THC. How did that recovery differ from, your first go around with alcohol?
yeah,
What'd you do at that point?
yeah. So luckily, I had enough recovery under my belt where, like, I'd stepped away from my program, because everyone did during the pandemic, where I went online, but, like, I told my sponsor, "Okay, I'm gonna try, like, gummies for, like, my anxiety, because my anxiety has never been so high because of the pandemic." And I live in California, so there were wildfires, so we literally couldn't leave our house, for, I think it was, like, 21 days for one time. And I have 3 children, and it was just like, well, this is actual hell. Like, here we're burning in hell. And so I started finding gummies that the experience mimicked alcohol. Like, they would say, like, euphoria or whatever the term they would give you. So I would look for those because I thought I was so clever and smart. And then I had, like, a minor surgery, and I was prescribed, pain pills, and I figured out a way to mix the 2, and ask for more, and I got more. And then, thank God, they cut me off, and it was the combination of that time where I was like, "Oh my god, I want more, I want more, I want more." This is what addiction feels like. I remember it from before, and I ended up overdosing on THC tincture, which is like the drops. And I was hallucinating. I like I thought I had to pump my own blood, and I just was panicking. And I just remember thinking, and actually was writing during that sort of trip, like, if I make it out of this alive, like, know that this is addiction again, and I need to stop. And the next morning, I woke up and I called my family and I said, "It got me again." I said, I've been doing drugs. You guys didn't know it." My husband knew because I had tricked him into saying, like, "Oh, it's okay. Like, my doctor said it's fine if I do it this way, and my sponsor said it's fine if I do it this way." And that was all lies. And then, yeah, so that's how I got back down into it again. But amazingly, I came back out. And now the relief that I feel that I can no longer do anything is worth its weight in gold because I just know, okay, well, oh, should I try this drink that has, or should I try kombucha that has like a little bit of, and no, the answer is no, I shouldn't because I will find a way to abuse it. So the answer is no. And it's always no.
It's nice to take it off the table completely, like,
Oh.
relieve the decision fatigue. Nothing. I will partake in nothing,
Right.
you
I will
know?
have my Gatorade, because I run. I will have my coffee because that is my last my last true form. But other than that, I just know the mental gymnastics you have to do in order to maintain your disease is so much more exhausting if you give yourself like an inch and a little bit and you play the game of I'll just have a glass, I'll just do a gummy instead of drinking the bottle. If you take it all away, there's just room for you.
I would do that. I could totally see myself doing that. So many people are talking about microdosing and, and for those that works, great, but I think to myself, "Oh, no. I would I would
Oh,
quickly turn it to macrodosing."
yeah, because I can microdose what, like, times 10? I mean, look at Matthew Perry, right? He was doing ketamine therapy, which we'll put that in big quotes,
Yeah.
for ketamine. Same thing, like, I'm, like, a sucker for reality shows, so I watched, like, the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and they were doing ketamine therapy on an IV drip, for, like, their healing therapy, and, like, I had to turn it off because like, watching them get high. Because remember, they're also Mormon where they
Yeah.
can't drink, and they're not supposed to have soda, and they're not supposed to swear or do any of this other stuff, but ketamine therapy is okay. Who would have thought? And it's so disturbing. It's so disturbing because we're just pretending that all of these things are medicinal and healing, and maybe they are for people that don't have a problem with addiction.
Yeah,
Maybe they
maybe.
are.
I mean, I'm
It's not
certainly not gonna.
I'm not.
Yeah,
Like, I'm
not
not
me.
gonna go do a mushroom trip somewhere because I will fall in love with it and then become addicted to mushrooms.
Same, not
No.
me. I mean, so much of our stories are similar. Like I tried THC and I think I kind of overdosed on it. Like I found myself sitting on a bar stool in our kitchen and completely falling off the bar stool,
Yep.
like crash down. And I was like, I think I OD'd. My
And then people gaslight you and they say,
yeah,
"Do that. That's actually not possible. You can't do that," which is not true. Your body can react to it however it's going to, but it's also more people trying to explain away like, "Oh, no, like, gummies are fine because it's natural and it's not addictive," and it's like, "Well, it was addictive how I was doing it. It was consuming all my thoughts. It's all I wanted to do. I wasn't participating in my life, so it was addictive for me, and
yeah,
therefore I can't do even a small amount of it."
yeah. I would take a gummy and then drink an NA beer. I mean, what kind of mind fuckery are we trying to accomplish here?
Right. Well, and that's the and then you rationalize it with yourself, right? Because you're like, "Oh, it's so much better than what I was doing,"
Oh
or,
yeah,
and you justify, but in the end, it's like, well, why do you still feel the need to do that? What is happening inside your
yeah,
thoughts that is the real issue here? Like, are you trying to avoid your unhappiness with motherhood? Are you trying to avoid your unhappiness with your job? Are you trying to escape, a marriage that's not working? Like, what's actually happening? And it's let's do the avoidance dance with the substances as long as we can to get out of it. And I was so guilty of that. I was so guilty of that.
same. Oh, this conversation's been so great, but we are getting a little bit long on time. I want to wrap it up with one last question here. Try to end on a positive note.
Yeah.
What part of writing about Leah was healing for you on your
Yeah.
journey?
Yeah. So the thing that probably was the most profoundly healing, besides the actual writing, has been the response of other people, and the relatability that's happened, where people have come to me and said, "I have a mom who died of this disease, and we had a fraught relationship, and now I'm, like, finding ways to forgive her because I realize how much she was suffering and that she didn't want to be doing the things that she was doing." And that's the confusing part, I think, for people that aren't addicted, is they think that this is a choice, that this is like a, "Oh, well, I chose drugs over you." And if that can't be the case because there's so much love. Like, if love could beat addiction, we would all choose love, of course. Um, and so that has been really healing for me, um, to just feel like I'm a valuable part of the conversation. And it continues to inspire me to want to stay in the conversation as the voice of someone who's sober. I also I felt so healed saying, like, the scary things out loud, like, um, I talk a lot about, Leah in her active addiction. She's, like, unsure about her decision to become a mom, and she sort of pines after the phantom life of, like, "Oh, I wish I was a surfer in Costa Rica." There's a lot of times in motherhood where it's not that I wanna take it all back, it's that I want to give myself grace to say, like, "Whoa, this was the decision I made. It is way harder than I ever could have imagined. I feel really lonely or I feel really out of control, and I hate it, and I hate it, and I hate it, and I hate it." And that's okay to feel that way. It doesn't mean I hate my children. It doesn't mean I hate my life. It just means that, like, I'm gonna say the scary things out loud and, like, other people can judge me for it, but I feel so much freer and, like, more seen as who I am. Because that's the thing about recovery is that you get to live exactly as you want. And, like, why would I ever do anything differently with that? Why would I continue to fake the reality that we had for so long of this fake existence? And so I just don't do it anymore. I'm just like, "Well, here's how it really is. Here's how I really feel, and take it or leave it." And more often than not, people are coming back and saying, like, "Oh my god, I'm so glad you said that because I was, like, so lonely in my suffering." And you don't have to be. You don't have to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. It's
Yeah,
been
my absolute
awesome.
yeah.
Um, where can people find you, find your book, get access to the audiobook? I know that's also incredible.
So the best way to find me is on Instagram. At Jessica Guerrieri Author is how you find me. I'm unfortunately always on there. I love connecting with readers. I like literally my DMs when if somebody messaged me and tells me something honest about their experience with my book, it fills my heart in such a profound way. Um, so Instagram is the easiest. I have a website, jessicaguerrieri.net. You can find all my tour information. I'm going to be in Florida in October. I'll be at Books and Books in Coral Gables, and I'll be doing a book signing and book talk event there. I'm also going to be doing another event in San Francisco. I'll have more information on that soon. That's coming up in the fall as well. Yeah, I you can also find me on TikTok at Just Stay Sober. And really, I just yeah, I my book is everywhere. You can get it all the places. Bookshop.org, if you want to support local indie bookshops and you don't want to buy from Amazon. Of course, it's on Amazon. It's actually on sale on Amazon right now. But it's everywhere. And if you go into like Barnes and Noble and they don't have it, you can ask them to order it for you. That's good for me when you do that because then more people get exposed to it. Um, but yeah, it's out there. It's called Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea. It looks like this. And also, I wanted to share too that my second book, Both Can Be True, will be out in May of next year. And it is also book club women's fiction. It will tackle similar genre of motherhood and sisterhood. It goes deep into recovery. This book, a lot of the feedback was they were eager to hear the recovery piece. A lot of it is the active addiction piece. And so I listened and I said, well, I want to show you what recovery and relapse looks like in its same raw, gritty format as you did with Leah. And so that will be out by Harper Muse as well next summer.
Awesome. Well, I hope to have you back on to
Yeah, of
discuss that.
course. I'd love it.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks for tuning in to Rewired Sober. You can find me on my Instagram at Rewired Sober, where there are links to catch up with me and all the things I'm working on in my coaching business, or the link tree to my business directly will be in the show notes. I so appreciate you joining me on this journey, and I welcome any feedback or any topics you want to hear about, things that you're struggling with or interested in. I love you all so very much, and I'm just so enjoying doing this with you.